You think all worms are soft? 500 million years ago, there was a creature whose entire body was covered with sharp spikes, like a living spiked mace, and its spikes could reach 5 centimeters long. What does that mean? Its body was only 5 centimeters long, yet the spikes were also 5 centimeters long. When scientists first saw the fossil, they were collectively stunned. No one had expected that there could be a creature on Earth with 2 rows of long spines growing on its back. Even more absurd is that this thing had no head, no tail, and not even eyes. So guess how it ate, how it moved, how it stayed alive? The answer is chilling. On its underside, there was a slug-like foot. It crawled along the seafloor while using a radula-like mouthpart to scrape bacteria from the seabed. But the most terrifying part is not that. The real question is, why did it evolve into this shape? Scientists later discovered that the oceans of that era had a top predator called Anomalocaris, whose bite force could crush almost anything. So in order not to be eaten, Wiwaxia turned itself into a spiky armored ball, covered in plates and spikes like a hedgehog. It succeeded, but what was the price? It used almost all of its energy to grow armor and spines. Its movement speed became as slow as a snail. But that is only the tip of the iceberg of its strange appearance. Its back was covered with hundreds of oval plates, each overlapping like fish scales, layer upon layer, completely sealed. From the center, they extended outward, forming a perfect armor system. Each plate had delicate textures as complex as fingerprints. These were not decorations, but structural reinforcements, making every plate extremely strong. Even stranger were the 2 rows of spikes. Each spine was leaf-shaped, up to 1 centimeter wide, with edges as sharp as knife blades. And these spikes were not straight. They curved slightly backward, which means if a predator tried to swallow it, the spikes would act like barbed hooks, getting stuck in the throat. Even worse for the predator, the material of these spikes was unbelievably hard. They were made of a carbon-based organic polymer, even tougher than keratin. Its body had no segmentation. The entire body was a continuous soft mass, like a cushion pressed against the seabed. On its underside, there was a broad muscular foot, similar to a snail's but wider and flatter. With this fleshy foot, it slowly crawled along the ocean floor. So slowly that with the naked eye, you might not even realize it was moving. It might take several hours to crawl just 1 meter. At the front of this foot was hidden its only feeding tool, the radula. This structure was like a tiny rasping saw covered with countless small teeth. It extended the radula and scraped back and forth across the seafloor, scraping bacteria and algae off rocks and sediments and sending them into its mouth. The entire feeding process was unbelievably slow. It might take hours just to finish 1 meal. But the strangest thing is, it had no eyes, no antennae, not even basic sensory organs. It was like a blind machine, groping through the dark sea floor. It relied only on the surface of its body to sense water flow and chemical signals to determine direction. It didn't even know what was around it. It could only act by instinct. Imagine that scene, a creature covered in spikes in a pitch-black ocean floor crawling mechanically like a robot. Crawl, scrape, day after day, year after year. No vision, no hearing, no awareness of the outside world. It spent its entire life in darkness like this. Its reproduction was even crueler. Juvenile Wiwaxia were only 2 millimeters long, with almost no armor at all, just a lump of soft flesh. Out of 1,000 larvae, perhaps only 1 or 2 survived to adulthood. They had to eat desperately, grow desperately, so their plates and spikes could develop quickly. Otherwise, they could become someone else's meal at any moment. Even if they were lucky enough to survive to adulthood, they had only transformed from a weak lump of flesh into a barely mobile, spiky ball. Their entire adult life was spent in some corner of the seabed, slowly crawling, slowly scraping for food, trying as much as possible not to be discovered, not to be attacked, barely clinging to life. This survival strategy was essentially trading freedom for safety and flexibility for defense. Do you know the most ironic part? The defensive system it worked so hard to grow made it live like a prisoner. Every plate was a shackle. Every spike was a bar of a cage. It trapped itself inside an indestructible prison. Enemies couldn't get in, but it could never get out either. That was the price it paid just to survive. And maintaining this armor constantly consumed its energy. The plates required continuous maintenance. The spikes needed regular replacement. Most of the food it ate had to be used just to maintain this equipment. The energy left for growth and reproduction was pitifully small, so it never grew large. 5 centimeters was its limit. And because its body structure was so extremely specialized, it completely lost the possibility of further evolution. It couldn't become faster. The armor was too heavy. It couldn't become bigger. There wasn't enough food. It couldn't change its lifestyle. Its entire body was designed for defense. It was locked onto an evolutionary path with no future. Even so, it persisted on the seafloor for tens of millions of years, generation after generation, repeating the same life. Crawl, scrape, hide, reproduce, then die. No glory, no freedom, only the most primitive instinct, survival. This was Wiwaxia, a creature that turned itself into a living spiked mace just to avoid being eaten. A life form that abandoned all possibilities simply to stay alive. Its entire existence was an extreme experiment in survival, paying the most brutal price to gain the most basic right, to exist. And perhaps that is the cruelest and most real face of life.